The music inside the grand ballroom echoed like a hollow drum as I stood just beyond the velvet curtains, holding my daughter's trembling hand. My name is Amanda Blake. I am 36 years old. And tonight, I realized that everything I believed about family, loyalty, and love was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. The diamond jubilee of my parents' marriage was supposed to be a celebration of enduring love. Instead, it became the stage for betrayal crafted over years, concealed by champagne flutes and choreographed toasts. Sienna, my 16-year-old daughter, was the one who pulled me out of the reverie. Her grip on my wrist was firm, insistent. Her voice, usually measured and calm, now trembled with urgency. "Mom, if we stay one more minute, you'll lose everything, including Ethan." I turned to her, startled. My 8-year-old son was inside, probably laughing with his cousins, unaware of the storm building beneath the crystal chandeliers. I shook my head in disbelief, thinking she was exaggerating. "Sienna, what are you talking about?" But her gaze didn't flinch. Her brown eyes, so much like mine when I was her age, held a truth I wasn't ready to face. "Just trust me, please. I'll explain everything once we're out of here. But we can't stay, not now. Not after what I just heard." There was something about her tone, the fear mixed with fury, that cut through years of habit. I had spent most of my adult life minimizing my instincts, silencing my doubts, trying to believe that my parents meant well even when they didn't show it. But in that moment, I saw something in Sienna's expression that demanded action. She wasn't pleading as a child afraid of family drama. She was warning me like someone who had uncovered a secret too dark to speak aloud in public. And I knew, somehow, that whatever was happening behind those polished mahogany doors wasn't just about inheritance or past wounds. It was about control. It was about power. And I was the last to see it coming. So I turned away from the celebration. I didn't know yet what exactly I was running from, but my daughter had never looked more certain. And for once, I listened. Amanda Blake was the kind of woman people often underestimated. At 36, she carried herself with quiet elegance, favoring structured blazers and wide-leg trousers over glitter or gloss. Her shoulder-length chestnut hair framed a face both serene and sharp, with storm-gray eyes that revealed more than she often allowed herself to say aloud. Once a rising star in the East Coast art scene, Amanda now worked as a freelance curator and part-time gallery consultant, trying to rebuild a life that had unraveled far too suddenly. She lived modestly in a small rented duplex outside Seattle, surrounded by books, half-finished canvases, and the laughter of her children. Her marriage to Derek Hale, a respected financial advisor and the son of a longtime friend of her father, had seemed like the perfect match. At least on paper. Her parents, Douglas and Margot Blake, had practically arranged it. Douglas was a titan in New England real estate, the kind of man whose word could bend zoning boards and influence elections. Margot was no less formidable, a former business leader with sharp taste and even sharper expectations. Amanda had grown up under the polished surface of privilege, but that surface was cold. Her parents had one rule: appearances mattered more than anything else. Derek had been charming, successful, and entirely their kind of man. For over a decade, Amanda played the part, wife, hostess, obedient daughter, until the role collapsed when she found out about Derek's affair with his assistant, a younger woman named Lauren. The divorce that followed was swift and cruel. Derek, with the help of his firm's legal team and Amanda's own father's silent support, managed to secure their former home and primary financial assets. Amanda was left with joint custody, a drained savings account, and 2 children whose trust she desperately needed to preserve. Sienna, Amanda's daughter, had always been different. At 16, she was watchful, almost unsettlingly perceptive for her age. She had her mother's eyes and her father's restraint, but none of their self-denial. Sienna had witnessed the quiet cruelties that passed between Amanda and her parents, the way Margot would phrase compliments as critiques, how Douglas praised Derek's business acumen while dismissing Amanda's career as a hobby. Sienna didn't speak much about it, but she noticed. She catalogued. And unlike Amanda, she didn't forgive so easily. Ethan, Amanda's 8-year-old son, was a different story. He had Derek's golden hair and an open, sunny disposition that made him the family favorite. Douglas adored him, often referring to him as the next Blake legacy. Gifts arrived weekly: sports equipment, custom blazers, even private baseball lessons. Ethan didn't understand the dynamics playing out around him, only that Grandpa loved him and his father always had something important to share. Amanda had tried to balance affection with boundaries, but she could feel Ethan slowly slipping into their orbit. To the outside world, Amanda's parents seemed supportive during the divorce. They invited her for dinners, sent birthday cards to the kids, and even made a show of offering to help financially. But Sienna didn't trust it. She warned her mother that something felt off. Amanda dismissed it as teenage cynicism, unwilling to believe that her parents, despite their coldness, might be capable of aligning with Derek. But that belief would crumble, piece by piece, beginning the night of the Diamond Jubilee when Amanda first realized she was no longer seen as a daughter. She was now just an obstacle. The invitation had arrived printed on heavy cream stock, engraved with golden script. Douglas and Margot Blake cordially invite you to their 60th wedding anniversary gala at the Charleston Opera House. Amanda had stared at it for a long time before setting it aside, unsure how to feel. Her parents rarely acknowledged her outside of controlled family settings. But this gesture felt almost conciliatory. After months of cold civility, could this be their way of making peace? Against Sienna's warnings and her own hesitations, Amanda decided to go. She told herself it was for the children, especially Ethan, who adored his grandparents and hadn't seen them in weeks. The Charleston Opera House was already decorated when they arrived. Velvet curtains swept dramatically across the grand stage, and chandeliers bathed the room in golden warmth. The air smelled faintly of roses and wealth. Amanda had spent 3 evenings hand-stitching her old silk gown to make it presentable. It hugged her frame in a modest, elegant way. She had also convinced Sienna to wear the emerald dress Margot had sent, though the girl had rolled her eyes as she zipped it up. Ethan, in a miniature tuxedo, looked every bit the heir apparent. At the entrance, Douglas stood tall in a tailored suit, his silver hair immaculately combed. Margot sparkled in a floor-length navy gown, greeting guests like a queen holding court. "Amanda, you look comfortable," her mother said with a practiced smile that barely touched her lips. Then she turned to Sienna, appraising her like a sculpture. "That color brings out your eyes." "I knew it would." Amanda responded with quiet thanks, brushing off the mild insult. Douglas barely acknowledged her before scooping Ethan into his arms. "There's my future CEO," he laughed, guiding him toward the head table. Amanda tried to suppress the growing unease twisting in her stomach. She moved through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries, laughing at stories from distant cousins, trying to act like she belonged. But something felt wrong. There was a stiffness in the air, an artificial sweetness layered too thickly over something sour. Then, across the ballroom, she saw them, Derek and Lauren, entering like celebrities late to the red carpet. Derek wore a charcoal suit and the confidence of someone who knew he was welcome. Lauren, in a crimson gown, hung on his arm with practiced ease. Amanda's heart plummeted. "Did you know they were invited?" she asked her cousin Emily. Emily looked away, guilty. "I assumed you knew. Margot sent them a personal invitation weeks ago." Before Amanda could process that betrayal, she saw her parents greeting Derek and Lauren with open arms. Douglas clapped Derek on the back, pulling him close. Margot leaned in to whisper something to Lauren, both of them laughing like old friends. Amanda froze, barely able to breathe. The man who had humiliated her, discarded her, was being welcomed like a prodigal son. When Margot finally noticed her daughter watching, she offered a dismissive shrug and mouthed the word, "bygones." Amanda retreated to the bar and poured herself a glass of wine. She felt Sienna watching, eyes narrowed, fingers dancing quickly over her phone. Amanda should have asked who she was texting. She should have known something was unfolding. But instead, she took another sip and told herself to survive the evening. For Ethan, for appearances, the music swelled as the event reached its height. Servers moved gracefully between tables with trays of hors d'oeuvres, and the photographer flitted about, capturing curated joy. Amanda pasted on a smile while watching Derek and Lauren accept congratulations on their recent engagement. Her cousin leaned in. "You're handling this with more grace than I ever could. I'd have slapped someone by now." Amanda gave a weak laugh, eyes searching the room for her children. Ethan was beside Douglas. being introduced to investors and partners like a young executive. Douglas rested a possessive hand on the boy's shoulder, his voice booming with pride. Sienna was harder to find. Amanda finally spotted her in the corner, speaking with Aunt Carol, her mother's younger sister. The conversation looked intense. Sienna stood with arms crossed, Carol nervously glancing around. When Amanda approached, the conversation stopped. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just chatting with your brilliant daughter," Carol said too brightly. "She's very observant." Sienna met Amanda's gaze. "We were discussing family history." Before Amanda could respond, the sound of glass clinking signaled a toast. Douglas stood in the center of the room, commanding silence. 60 years of marriage teaches you many things, he began. But above all, it teaches you to make decisions that preserve the family. Sometimes, those decisions aren't comfortable. But they're necessary. He raised his glass toward Margot. Then cast meaningful glances toward Derek and Ethan. Amanda's stomach churned. "Tonight, we don't just honor the past," Douglas continued. "We secure the future." Guests clapped politely, some exchanging puzzled looks at the unusual tone of the toast. Amanda sat frozen, dread creeping in like a slow fog, as she began to understand that something far more calculated was taking place beneath the glitter and gold. As the dinner plates were cleared and guests moved toward the dessert tables, Amanda excused herself under the pretense of freshening up. Her heart beat heavily in her chest, her mind still reeling from Douglas's toast. The words had been veiled, but the message was clear: some kind of transfer was happening, something that elevated Derek, elevated Ethan, and somehow erased her. In the hallway outside the powder room, she nearly collided with Aunt Carol, who seemed startled to see her. "Oh, Amanda," she said breathlessly, "I was actually hoping to find you." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "You seemed a bit on edge earlier with Sienna." Carol hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I overheard your father and Derek discussing some legal paperwork. Something about transferring property, securing guardianship. Your name came up along with words like unstable and uncooperative." Amanda's skin went cold. "What kind of paperwork?" "Property deeds, custody modifications, trusts." They sounded final. "Just be cautious." Before Amanda could ask more, Margot called out from the other end of the corridor. "Carol, they're about to cut the cake. We need you for photos." Carol gave Amanda's arm a quick squeeze and disappeared. When Amanda returned to the ballroom, Ethan was no longer at the table. She scanned the crowd until she spotted him, on Derek's lap, giggling at something on his phone, with Margot looking on fondly. Amanda's gut twisted. "Where's Sienna?" she asked quickly. Margot sighed. "That girl. She went to the terrace. Said she needed some air. So moody lately." Amanda pushed through the doors to the outdoor terrace, where the night air hit her face like a splash of cold water. Sienna was at the edge of the railing, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in a low, serious tone. "Yes. Exactly like you warned me. The red tabs were on the documents, and they had her name. I need to know if that's legal." She noticed Amanda approaching and ended the call. "Everything okay?" Amanda asked. Sienna nodded slowly. "Depends. Are you ready to hear the truth, Mom?" Amanda blinked. "Who were you talking to?" "Aunt Clara." Amanda froze. Clara was her younger sister, estranged from the family for nearly a decade after she'd rejected the family business and married someone Margot disapproved of. Amanda had barely spoken to her in years. "You contacted Clara?" "I found her online months ago," Sienna said. "I've been talking to her ever since. The way Grandpa treats you, the way he ignores me and focuses on Ethan, it reminded her of what happened before." Amanda was stunned. "Clara said the same things?" Sienna's voice grew more urgent. "She said to watch for signs, legal conversations, pushing Derek forward, building a case for removing you from the family line. I didn't believe it at first, but then I overheard Grandpa and Derek in the lounge talking about guardianship, about shifting property. So I checked Grandpa's briefcase. He keeps it in his office upstairs. I took photos." Sienna opened her phone and held it up. Amanda saw blurry snapshots of printed contracts, legal documents with her name crossed out in red pen. Next to her name, in sharp ink, Derek's name had been added as custodian for Ethan. Another document detailed a proposed transfer of Amanda's childhood home, the Victorian estate, to a holding trust in Ethan's name, with Derek as co-trustee. They're transferring everything without telling you, Sienna said. They're planning to make Derek the legal guardian of Ethan, using the narrative that you're emotionally unstable and financially incapable. Amanda's knees nearly gave out. Her voice shook. You broke into his briefcase? I listened when you didn't, Sienna snapped. You kept forgiving them. You kept saying they mean well. But they don't. They're rewriting our family to erase us. Amanda was too stunned to respond. Sienna wasn't done. There's more. When I went back inside, I recorded Grandpa and Derek talking. He said the divorce was an opportunity to finally take control of the family's future. He said you'd never fight because you don't have the stomach for confrontation. Amanda staggered backward a step, the words cutting deeper than she expected. She had always avoided fights, smoothed conflict, swallowed pride. But now, her own father had weaponized her restraint. Sienna's eyes burned with fury. You think I'm just being dramatic. But you didn't hear what I heard. You didn't see how they're using Ethan. How they're praising Derek like the son they always wanted. You were never going to be enough for them, Mom. But now they're trying to take your son. And you still think we should stay for cake? Amanda turned to look through the glass doors. Inside, Douglas had his hand on Ethan's shoulder, leading him toward a group of investors. Derek stood proudly, shaking hands. Margot presented Lauren with a sapphire pendant Amanda had once been promised. It was all unfolding right there, and no one saw it for what it was. Except Sienna. And now Amanda. She clenched her jaw. We're leaving. Now. Amanda didn't wait for the dessert course or for the second round of speeches. She returned to the ballroom with a single focus, get Ethan and leave. As she made her way across the marble floor, smiling guests parted, their cheerful chatter brushing past her ears like white noise. Douglas spotted her approaching and moved swiftly to intercept her near the dessert fountain. Leaving already? He asked with an almost amused expression. You haven't even heard the important announcements. Amanda kept her tone even. Sienna isn't feeling well. We're heading out. His smile faltered. Brian can drive her. You and Ethan should stay. This evening is significant. He emphasized the word with a pointed look, the one he had always used to communicate in spoken commands. But this time, Amanda didn't flinch. We'll come back another time. As she turned to collect Ethan, Derek appeared from the side like a vulture. Brooke, your father wants to discuss some options about Ethan's schooling. You really should stay. It's for his future. Amanda's heart clenched. Another time, she repeated. Derek's gaze traveled over her simple dress with poorly concealed disdain. You're being emotional. The financial security your parents are offering Ethan, it's not something you can provide on your own. Just as Amanda opened her mouth to respond, Sienna stepped between them. We're leaving. Now. Her voice cut like a blade. She reached out and took Ethan's hand, guiding him gently toward the exit. As they walked, Amanda caught fragments of conversation from a nearby group of men in suits. Custody shift should be finalized next quarter. Wallace properties remain in the family. Not through the daughter. Amanda's breath caught. They weren't even hiding it. This wasn't just speculation, it was happening. Her family had been plotting, not quietly or reluctantly, but strategically, right in front of her. And she had walked in smiling, offering peace. Douglas reached the front entrance just as Amanda and the children were slipping past the doorman. His voice followed them. You're being reckless, Amanda. You're emotional. Don't make decisions you'll regret. She turned slowly, her son's hand in hers, her daughter at her side. I've made too many decisions based on what you think I should be. That ends now. They left the gala behind, stepping into the thick summer air. The facade of celebration collapsed as the real storm began. They drove in silence, the car humming like a distant warning bell. Ethan, exhausted from sugar and excitement, nodded off in the backseat. Amanda glanced at Sienna. Are you going to tell me everything now? Sienna nodded. Pull over somewhere quiet. Amanda turned into an empty shopping plaza and parked. Under the glow of a flickering street lamp, Sienna opened her phone and showed her mother everything, photos of contracts, trust documents, red-marked custody proposals with Amanda's name crossed out. They're making Derek the legal guardian, Sienna said, her voice hardening. They're using Ethan's trust to lock you out. The house you grew up in, it's already being transferred. Amanda stared in disbelief. And Aunt Clara, she told you this might happen? Sienna nodded. Clara said the same thing happened to her. Grandpa waited until a family event, then made a public declaration after signing everything privately. When she objected, he said she was unstable. Same words he's using about you. Amanda scrolled through the messages Clara had sent. Long paragraphs, detailed warnings, and references to old family documents that had mysteriously disappeared after her own falling out with Douglas. I recorded them too, Sienna said, pulling up audio files. Amanda listened, horrified, to her father's voice saying, "Derek understands structure. Amanda is too sentimental. This is about legacy." Then Derek's voice, "If we present it carefully, we can shift guardianship without triggering a dispute. She's emotionally fragile. Ethan belongs with me." Amanda blinked back tears. "They think they can do this to me. Because they've done it before," Sienna whispered. "And because you've let them control you for years." Amanda looked at her daughter, seeing her not as a child but as a fierce and loyal protector. "You saved us," Amanda said softly. "You saw what I couldn't." Sienna shrugged, embarrassed. "I just paid attention." Amanda took a shaky breath and started the car. "Then let's go home. And tomorrow, we fight." That night, Amanda barely slept. After tucking Ethan in, she sat at the kitchen table with Sienna, reviewing everything again and again. Around midnight, Sienna finally dozed off with the phone still in her hand. Amanda covered her with a blanket, kissed her forehead, and walked back to the table. She opened her old email account, the one she had shared with Derek back when they were still pretending to be in love. He had never changed the password. In the drafts folder, he had left behind a map of his betrayal. One message read, "Douglas agrees. Transfer of property before school year. Custody documents ready." Amanda distracted. "Will not see it coming." Another, Margot nervous about Brooke's reaction. "Douglas says family pressure will break her down." Amanda's hands trembled as she scrolled through emails between Derek and their family lawyer, discussing timelines, ownership transfers, even leveraging Ethan's schooling against Amanda's refusal to cooperate. At 2 a.m., she sent a message to Clara, "It's Brooke. Sienna showed me everything. I need to talk." The reply came instantly. "I've been waiting for this call for years. Are you somewhere safe?" They spoke for over an hour. Clara's voice was steady but weary. She had seen the Blake family machine devour trust, rewrite memory, and punish independence. They see children as extensions of their will. If you step outside their design, you're cut out like a flaw in the marble. Amanda listened and, for the first time in years, truly understood. The betrayal wasn't personal. It was systemic. A legacy built on compliance. But Sienna had broken the pattern. And now, Amanda was ready to join her. "What do I do next?" she asked. Clara replied, "Document everything. Get a lawyer outside of their circle. And don't sign a single thing." By morning, Amanda was no longer shaken. She was resolute. After breakfast, with Ethan distracted by a cartoon and Sienna silently organizing screenshots on her phone, Amanda picked up her cell and called the number Clara had given her the night before. The woman who answered introduced herself as Jennifer Ayers, a private attorney specializing in estate protection and custody disputes outside of legacy-controlled firms. Amanda didn't trust anyone connected to the Blake family circle anymore. Jennifer listened closely as Amanda described the events, then requested a meeting that same afternoon. "Bring all documentation," she said. "Photos, messages, recordings, anything your daughter uncovered." Jennifer's office was modest, no glossy real estate magazines or photos of prestigious clients, just a clean desk and the quiet hum of a confident professional. After reviewing the documents, she looked up with a small, grim smile. "You're not crazy. This is methodical manipulation. It's subtle, but intentional. Your father and your ex-husband planned to transfer your family's assets into a trust controlled by Derek, using Ethan as the legal vehicle, while building a case to alter custody. They were also prepared to challenge your parental fitness using financial instability and emotional fragility as grounds. It's not just unethical. It's actionable." Amanda exhaled, shaking her head. "They were going to use my son to erase me." Jennifer tapped her pen. "They still might. But you have one thing they don't, Sienna. The evidence she gathered will hold up in court. And I'll file an injunction immediately to prevent any property transfers or trust restructuring until we complete discovery." Amanda nodded slowly. "And what about Ethan? They've been filling his head with promises." Private school, trips, legacy titles. He's just a child. He believes them. Jennifer leaned forward. We bring in a family therapist. Not just for Ethan's protection, but to show the court your commitment to your son's emotional well-being. We establish a history of interference. And we begin reclaiming narrative control. Amanda felt a flicker of hope. For the first time in years, someone was willing to fight for her, not just pacify or redirect. That evening, she sat Ethan down with Sienna present and spoke plainly. You love Grandpa and Dad, I know that. And they love you too. But some of the things they've said, about school, about where you live, about who should make choices for you, they weren't fair. They didn't tell me. And families have to make decisions together. Ethan looked confused but nodded slowly. Am I in trouble? Amanda smiled gently. No, you're just in the middle of something complicated. And I'm here to protect you. Always. Over the next few weeks, Jennifer filed legal orders, blocked any custodial changes, froze potential property transfers, and issued formal warnings to both Douglas and Derek. Meanwhile, Sienna built timelines of every manipulative interaction, cataloging conversations, emails, and proof of intent to undermine Amanda's standing. Clara visited, bringing her own documentation from years ago, providing a chilling echo of Amanda's current situation. Even Amanda's brother, Brian, eventually broke his silence. From across the country, he sent emails showing early drafts of the trust transfers, emails where Douglas had assured him Amanda would step aside peacefully once Derek assumed control. The final confrontation took place not in a courtroom but across a long glass conference table in Jennifer's office. On one side, Amanda, Sienna, Clara, and Jennifer. On the other, Douglas, Margot, Derek, and their lawyer. Ethan was at school. The air was thick. Douglas leaned forward. We want to avoid public fallout. Let's be civil. Jennifer responded crisply. Then honor these terms: full restoration of Amanda's inheritance. Equal beneficiary rights for both children. Derek removed from all trusts and deeds. And all future interaction governed by documented legal boundaries. Margot gasped. This is family, not warfare. Clara's voice cut in, sharp and clear. You declared war when you tried to erase your own daughter. Douglas scoffed. We were trying to protect the legacy. Sienna, quiet until now, looked directly at her grandfather. Then why did you treat us like we didn't matter? Silence fell. This time, it wasn't Amanda's voice that challenged power. It was the girl who saw through the lies and refused to be silent. And no one could argue with the truth in her words. The agreement, though not affectionate, was binding. Amanda retained legal control over her inheritance and property. Both Sienna and Ethan were guaranteed equal standing in any future trust arrangements. Douglas was formally removed as trustee. Derek signed a legal declaration relinquishing any guardianship ambitions in exchange for a co-parenting plan that gave him scheduled time with Ethan, but under strict supervision and no financial authority. Visitation with the grandparents would be limited and monitored until trust could be rebuilt. In the months that followed, Amanda used the restitution from the secured inheritance to move her family out of the cramped rental into a modest, sunlit craftsman-style home near the city's art district. She resumed work at the gallery with full-time hours, eventually stepping into a co-director role. The financial independence gave her freedom, but what truly shifted was her internal compass. For the first time in her life, Amanda made decisions without seeking her parents' validation. Sienna thrived. No longer burdened by the weight of secrecy or resentment, she grew more confident, more joyful. She stayed in close contact with Clara, who visited often, bringing her 2 sons and stories from Colorado. It became routine for the 3 generations of Blake women, Clara, Amanda, and Sienna, to sit on the porch after dinner, sipping tea and talking about everything from family trauma to art exhibitions and school life. Ethan needed more care. His loyalty had been molded by gifts and praise from Douglas and Derek, and the adjustment was slow. But with therapy and the patient presence of Amanda and Sienna, he began asking questions. Why did Grandpa say you're not strong enough? Why did Dad say I should live with him because of school? Amanda answered gently, age-appropriately, never turning love into blame. Sometimes people say things to get what they want, even when they don't think about how it makes others feel. But we're here to tell you the truth, always. The deeper healing came not just from court wins or secured documents, but from something Amanda hadn't expected: the redefinition of family. Clara became more than a name whispered at holidays. She became a sister, a friend, and a mirror to Amanda's past and future. Clara confessed one evening, "He broke me, Amanda. Our father made me believe I was dangerous because I had my own opinions." But Sienna, she didn't let it happen again. She stopped the cycle. Amanda nodded, eyes misty. Because she had someone who finally listened. 1 year after the infamous anniversary party, Amanda sat on the back porch with Sienna as the sun dipped below the trees. They shared slices of peach pie and watched Ethan chase fireflies in the yard. "Do you think Grandpa and Grandma will ever change?" Sienna asked quietly. Amanda considered the question. "They might not. But they'll adjust, because they have to." Sienna looked over. "I still don't get it. They had money, respect, everything. Why try to take yours?" Amanda smiled sadly. "It was never about the money. It was about control. Control over me. Control over Ethan. Legacy, to them, was obedience. But to me, legacy means giving you the courage to walk away when something feels wrong, even if everyone else tells you it's right." Sienna leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "I'm glad we fought back." Amanda squeezed her hand. "We won because of you. You noticed what I refused to see. You stood your ground when I was still afraid." Sienna shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I just didn't want them to erase us." Amanda looked out at the yard where her son ran free, not as an heir or a pawn, but as a child. Then she looked at the daughter who had shattered generations of silent submission. And in that golden hour, she understood something she hadn't all her life: strength isn't always loud. Sometimes, it looks like a teenage girl holding a phone with shaking hands and choosing to speak. The inheritance Amanda had protected wasn't just the house, the gallery, or the bank accounts. It was truth. It was dignity. It was a future where her children would know that love is not control and family is not an excuse to betray. She had once believed her father's legacy was something to earn. But now, watching Sienna grow into a young woman with clear eyes and a steady voice, Amanda saw clearly. The true legacy, her legacy, had already begun.